Welcome into the latest edition of Extra Time. Stevie with us here in the studio. Don and Robbo with us. How's the heat levels, Robbo?
All right, now I've got the fan on. I feel absolutely fine.
Oh, that's good. Hot in England. Which coach do you feel is under the most pressure to start the season, Don? Arteta, Lampard, Marsh, Tuchel?
I think it's probably Frank. I think, in all honesty, I think everyone's...
Lampard, come on. Just
Sorry, Frank Lampard. Yeah, as much as I want Everton to do well, and I want Frank to do well, Frank Lampard, I think it's going to depend on how they start. You know, they've got a tough opening game at Goodison against Chelsea, so they'd like something from that game. But if you get off to a negative start, you're chasing it a little bit, depending on the games and the results around you. All right, it's only match day one. But I think the problem is, Dan, I think it's where Everton really want to be, is they want to be in that conversation with the likes of West Ham going for sort of 6th and 7th. Well, at the minute, they are a mile off that. So the signings they've made are quite good. Tarkowski's a really good signing. They're still looking at Maxwell Cornet. Dwight McNeil had a goal the other day in a pre-season game, so hopefully he can do well. But they need an awful lot more if they're going to convince me. I don't think they'll go down, but I think they're going to struggle in and around sort of 15th, 16th, and sort of be down that end of the table.
Robbo's going to say Arteta, isn't he?
No, not even Robbo.
Robbo?
Say that.
No, I'm going to say Thomas Tuchel. Champions League winner with Chelsea only a couple of years ago. He's obviously been a good manager for them. I just get the sense that not everything's right at Chelsea. And if Chelsea don't have a good start, the manager's always under pressure. And if you look at the history, every 3 or 4 seasons, Chelsea have a real off-season. Then they get it all back again. This could be the off-season for them. And when that happens, the manager always goes. So Thomas Tuchel's going to be the manager under pressure for me.
What about this for a question? Who would win in a fight between the 3 of these, so Don, Robbo and Stevie, in their physical prime? I suppose I should throw in my judgment first, shouldn't I? I think I would fancy Robbo out of the 3, just because he's quite stubborn. I just can't imagine him going down at all. I think he would fight right to the end. Don, what do you reckon?
Nah, I think it's Robbo, Stevie. I'm last. I'm not a fighter, Dan. I tell you one thing that happened when I was at West Ham, and there was an Australian player at the time called Robbie Slater, and he was hard as nails. And me and him went into a tackle. And it was full-blooded in training, and the 2 of us squared up to each other. And me and Harry Redknapp were like, we loved each other. Me and Harry loved each other away from the training ground. But as soon as Harry put a tracksuit on, and I was training, we just sort of didn't see eye to eye, and we fought like cat and dog. We just didn't get on. So anyway, this tackle went in, and Harry's gone, everyone in a square. Don and Robbie Slater, you can both have it out in the square. And I was like, what? I don't want to be in the square. I don't want to be in there. Yeah. I don't want to be in there. So I sort of had to sort of talk my way out of it and go, Robbie, come on, I didn't really mean it, and I had to diffuse it, otherwise I was going in there for a punch-up.
Wow. Harry really didn't like you, did he?
Exactly. He wanted Robbie to proper chin me.
Wow. So we've got you against Robbo, basically, in your prime.
Yeah, I'm a bit like Don. I was never a fighter.
No.
I would always stand my ground, but I would never have.
No. So, Robbo, you kind of win by default.
I think you won by default, Robbo. I'm guessing Robbo, actually, of the 3 of us, I'm going to guess that Robbo would be the only one that would be in the gym as well.
Right.
Doing weights and stuff. Which there's no chance Don and I are in the gym.
As you've heard many times, I've only ever punched one person in my life, and that was an assistant coach at Coventry, and your old mate Phil Neal. And I've had no other fights. Most of my physical confrontations were on the pitch, where if somebody went in harder, someone went in hard, I might go harder and higher. So that was about it. But certainly a physical contact out of football, no way. The only person I could beat would be Dan, I think.
Well, that's not difficult, is it?
Oh, yeah.
That's not hard.
Yeah.
It must be difficult for people who are not professional sportsmen or women,
right?
Or haven't been professional players, who would find it hard to understand that. Just what Robbo was saying there, away from the game, the aggression and the physical thing and the fighting, it's like, well, what are you talking about?
Right.
But then, if it's during the game, you're going to have people in 2,
right,
without even thinking twice about it. How is that? weird that.
Just you cross the line, you're a different.
It's just the way it is. But try and explain it.
Robbo, how many goals do you think Gabriel Jesus will score in all competitions? I think we'll go just this season.
Well, before he went to Arsenal, or just before he went to Arsenal, I thought it wouldn't be very many. I didn't think it was a great signing. You know, he talked last year about he was a better right winger than he was a centre forward. There's never been a centre forward, he said, when he couldn't get in the team. But having seen him play for Arsenal in pre-season, it looks as though he's hit the ground running. The other players enjoy playing with him. He's making run after run. He looks as though he's full of confidence. So I'm going to go for 18. All told,
18?
18, all competitions.
Over or under, Don?
Well, is that a little bit cheeky? Does that include the World Cup?
No.
Right. 25 all comps.
I think I'll probably go closer to Robbo.
Right. How close? Ooh.
I'll maybe go with Robbo as well, 18.
18 on the nose?
Yeah, it's very difficult to... I've seen a lot of people scoring a lot of goals in pre-season that
Okay.
as soon as it really starts, it don't happen.
Stevie, why are you naming Haaland as the Premier League top scorer? In the last 20 years, no player has become top scorer in their first season. Salah can be mentioned, but he had a few games with Chelsea, and Aubameyang did it in his first complete season.
Well, because there's no question whatsoever this guy is going to get a lot of chances.
Right.
And if he's getting a lot of chances, he's scoring a lot of goals. So that's why. And I think Man City are the favourites.
Yeah.
And so that means he's going to get the chances and the goals. And in his first season, if you end up top scorer in the Premier League, you're going to win Player of the Season.
There you go. Yeah. Robbo, a bit of start, bench and drop for you.
Oh, no.
Arsenal legends, Patrick Vieira, Dennis Bergkamp, Gilberto Silva.
Well, I'm going to go, and I hate to say this, on the bit or drop or whatever bench would have to be Gilberto Silva. As much as he worked for ESPN at the World Cup and a lovely guy, I don't think you can put, and a World Cup winner, you can't put him in the same context as Patrick Vieira, who was dominant for Arsenal, and obviously Dennis Bergkamp, who was the playmaker. But the man I think made most difference to Arsenal for several seasons was Patrick Vieira. He was that all-round midfield player. He did the dirty work, and he also gave Arsenal that bit of strength in midfield and that sort of competitive instinct. So I'm going to go with Patrick Vieira as the main man, Bergkamp the second, and then Gilberto Silva the last.
Do you agree, Don?
I do, because if you think Bergkamp, how good he was, he wouldn't be the same player behind if Patrick Vieira weren't playing. I've played against Patrick many a time, and he was an incredible thinker of the game. People think he's an athlete and he could play, which undoubtedly he was, but he was smart. The amount of traps that he used to set as a midfield player, Dan, I'd be looking at David Unsworth, my left back for Everton, and I'd be checking my shoulders and I'm thinking, yeah, Patrick's about 20 yards behind me. Dave Unsworth would roll a little ball straight into my feet and I'd take it on the half turn, and by the time the ball got to me, I took it on the half turn. Vieira just smashed me every single time. And I was just like in awe, like, how's he doing it? I've got 20 yards to work in, but his long legs used to just eat up the ground, and my word, like, what a player. So, yeah, I think you start Vieira, you bench Bergkamp, and Gilberto Silva doesn't make it, unfortunately.
No wonder Harry wanted you punched in the face, kicking the ball away. How long does it take new players to integrate into the squad? Is it bad to wait until deadline day to sign a player, or is the transition very quick? What do you think, Robbo?
Obviously, the ideal thing is to buy a player right at the beginning of the transfer window. You have him in training, you work with him in your pre-season, and by the time you play that first game, he's already played 4 or 5 games and he knows the other players. Can it work when you buy somebody on the last day and he suddenly comes into the team? Of course it can, but I think it's harder. And there's been lots of players that have done that. I remember, and Don will know him, Tony Cottee from West Ham, signed for Everton and scored a hat-trick on the opening day of the season against Newcastle in a brilliant performance, and then didn't do quite so well after that. So you can do it on your first game, but I think you really need 4 or 5 games to be at your very best for your teammates.
Don, I was listening to Peter Crouch's podcast, and he was talking about first day at training for new players and talking about when he was at Liverpool and Steven Gerrard would really ping the balls into this new player. It's like almost like a show us what you've got sort of thing. Yeah. Are you really up to this standard? Was that everywhere?
Yeah, that's just one of them, especially when you get brought in for a big fee. and then someone rattles the ball as hard as they can. They bounce it just in front of you, and you take a bad touch, and everyone goes, "How much?" That's one of them. So it's one of them. It's like a little induction. It's one of them. I think to answer the question, though, Dan, I think it's one of them where, and I don't know if you can measure this, but I think if you're an English side and you're a British lad and you go into a dressing room, you can speak the language. It's a lot easier to settle in. Where I can imagine when you see the foreign boys coming into a dressing room, which I've been in myself, it takes a little bit more time for them to adapt to you because of the language and the banter and the jokes that are going on, especially the things that are going off the field as well, with looking after families and renting houses and buying cars and language. So it must be difficult for them.
Don, it must have been intimidating going into that Liverpool squad when you looked around at all those names, like for your first training session.
It was tough, Dan, because Stevie remembers legendary sides, legendary players, and the list goes on and on and on and on and on. But what happened to us, Dan, back in the day when I was signed for Liverpool, and Stevie will remember, is we used to go to, so you'd get in your car, you'd go to Anfield, and Stevie, being one of the first team, would go into the home dressing room. Me being a youngster, we'd go into the away dressing room, so the reserves and the kids would go into the away dressing room, first teamers into the home. Then you'd put your kit on, then you'd walk outside to the team coach, then the team coach would take you down to Melwood. That's how it was back then. There was no food down at Melwood. You'd do your training, muddy, dirty, wet, rained on, snowed on, then you get back on the coach and go back to Anfield again. But Stevie will tell you about the bus journeys. And the bus journeys were brutal, let me tell you. So I used to get on the front of the coach, Steve McManaman and Jamie Redknapp. And Stevie's laughing because he knows what's coming. And Steve McMahon used to be at the back of the coach. And the level of abuse we used to get was off the charts. And it wouldn't happen these days, but that was just part of your bedding in process. Can you take it? Are you going to wilt? Are you man enough to sort of step up to him? Honestly, Dan, though, the first couple of weeks, it was like, get on the coach, just give it one of them. Please don't be me today. It was awful.
But that first...
Do you know what it is? It started at the back, right?
Yeah.
You know the hierarchy?
Yes, yeah.
And it filtered all the way through the boss.
Right.
So that it starts at the back, the ones in the 2 or 3 are getting it, then they're passing on to the 2 and 3 in front of them.
Yeah.
And it got down to the kids at the front, and they would get on the bus driver. And they would get onto the bus driver and slap him in the head and all kinds. He actually pulled over once. We got through the traffic lights on the way to training, and the bus driver pulled over and got out and said, "That's it, I'm done."
Wow.
And Ronnie Moran's got off the bus, right? And Ronnie's went, "I don't care what they've done, I don't care what they said. You better get on that bus."
Yep.
And we'll sort something out later. But right now, get your on the bus.
Goodness me.
Now. And the driver went, "All right, Rod."
Wow.
He got on the bus.
How judgy were you after a first training session with the new signing?
If they had a bad day, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you spotted any sort of problem,
Right.
that's what you're basically doing.
That'd be it.
Plus, everybody else though is trying to show the new guy they can play.
Right.
So
everyone's up in their
it's actually
game.
going both ways. He's desperate to try and show everybody else.
Yes.
that he can play.
Yeah.
And we're all going, right, I'm going to show this guy coming in that I can play.
Wow.
So that first one was the level was raised.
Yeah.
A little. As I said, any mistake, aye.
Wow. Rob, this whole dynamic's fascinating for someone on the outside looking in. This was universal, pretty much,
though.
yeah.
It was great. Though.
Of course it was. I mean, I got in the Arsenal first team. I was only 17 and a week old, and there was 2 or 3 internationals, some big players there, and they were the ones that tried to make life difficult. You know, off the field, they actually made it okay, but when you were playing, if you ever gave the ball away, they'd try and highlight it as much as you could. They'd given the ball away 10 times. You might have only given it away twice, but they tried to highlight your mistakes every time. I think there was a bit of jealousy. The young player coming into the side and was getting a lot of attention, maybe, but they also try to make it hard for you. And that was the case wherever you go. And I think then when you become that senior player, you do exactly the same to the young players.
Self-preservation. That's what it's all about, yeah. Looking after yourself. Don, what causes certain players like Pogba to get injured so much when other players like Mane or Ronaldo never get injured?
No idea, Dan. No
Just genetics,
idea. Yeah, I mean, listen, I never got injured. I had the odd little hernia, but that's just part of the course. But I never got injured till I was 31. I'd done my ACL at 31, and I never really had an injury. Meniscus problems happen all the time. If it's lateral, it's 3 months. If it's medial side, he'll be back within, I think the record, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it might be Ali McCoist, I think, who's got the record of something like 14 days or 12 days or something. So that won't be a problem. But trying to judge, who's going to get injured, people like Ronaldo are just freaks of nature where he looks after himself like you wouldn't believe. But I guess Paul Pogba is the same as well. Different characters, obviously. But I don't think you can read too much into it, how one gets injured and one doesn't.
Robbo, we know obviously you had serious injuries that made you retire early. It must be the most frustrating thing as a footballer.
It's more frustrating since I retired, because I know now that the injuries I had that were misdiagnosed, I could have sorted those. They could have been sorted out at source. But they kept on saying I had a groin strain. They did operations on my groin, and it was actually my back was slightly locked. So they did all these operations. One of the operations that I had meant that there was going to be other problems, because then my hamstring was always under pressure. Then my medial ligament was under pressure because they'd taken one of the tendons away. So I was always under pressure. What I had to do is, when I was fit, I had to be fitter than the other players in terms of general fitness, and make sure that when I played better than anybody else. That was the way I had to go about things, because I knew I was going to miss games through injury.
Players today, as far as injuries are concerned, are the luckiest people alive.
Right.
Because when Robbo and I were playing, we had ex-players who were the physios.
Right. So Roy Evans was your physio?
Evans and Ronnie Moran. It was Ronnie Moran, then it would be Roy Evans. They were coming on the field of play if you went down. And then, all they did was hit you in the face with a wet sponge and say, "Are you okay?" You're like, "Yeah, I'm fine." Okay, on you go. And then you'd come off, and they'd say, "Put some ice on it."
That's when you broke your jaw, wasn't it?
Aye. I broke my jaw in 2 places. And Roy came on, I was lying on the ground, and he bent down, right? And I could see him coming, and I'm thinking, what's he going to do? And then the next minute, he hits me right in the face with a sponge.
It's good for a
and I just broke my jaw as well. And he went, "Nico, you all right?" I went, He said, "Stand up." I went, "Stand up." And he went, "That's your teeth. You'll be all right." And off he went.
Right.
And I had to play on.
And did you play the whole game?
I played the rest of the game. It was the second half.
With the broken
I played the second half with a broken jaw. And then the boss.
Stevie was let down.
Hey, so we get after the game.
Yeah.
And we were at Norwich away.
Okay.
And we were changing in porta cabins because they were doing work on the stadium.
Lovely.
So we were told by the police that because of the weather, we shouldn't go back to Liverpool because it's like a 5-hour bus journey.
Yep.
So we went back to the hotel where we came from, and Roy just came up to me after the game and went, "How are you feeling?" And I was like, all right. And I went back to the hotel. That was it. I went back to the hotel. And then the next morning, I get on the bus, and my face is swollen like that, and Roy's went like that. Oh my goodness. He says, "Don't worry. I've got you an appointment. As soon as we get back to Anfield, I've got you an appointment at the dentist."
Brilliant. Amazing.
So we get back eventually, 5 hours on the bus. Of course, everybody's taking the mick out of me, offering me sandwiches.
Yes,
and
yeah.
all kinds.
Yeah.
Get to Anfield, and as I get to Anfield, I said to Ken, because we had no mobile phones around.
Yeah.
I said to Kenny, I said, "Do us a favour, can you phone the wife, tell her I'm going to get sorted out, right?" And he went, "Oh, aye, fine, aye." Anyway, so Roy takes me down to the dentist, and the dentist looks at me and goes, "Oh, that's not your teeth, son." He went like that, opened my jaw up. He said, I'll call next door." So next door to the dentist was the orthopaedic guy.
Right.
It was Rodney Street, where all the things were. And Roy turned to me and said, "Look, the missus is waiting for me. I'm going to shoot off." He said, "And we'll sort it out, and I'll see you in the morning." And Roy left me. He left me sitting at the dentist. And the dentist's assistant took me next door to the guy who said, X-rayed up, went, "You're broken it in 2 places.
Right.
Get yourself home.
Right.
You're going to the hospital tonight to get it done."
Wow.
I went home on my own, in the taxi.
God.
And I got home, tapped on the door,
Yes.
and the wife absolutely berated me. So it was 7 o'clock at night by this time.
Yeah.
He thought I'd been out of the pub.
Yep.
And she just absolutely annihilated me, and I just stood there like that. Eventually she stopped and looked at me. And she went, "Are you all right?" And I went, Oh my goodness!
What a lovely
You
trip.
can't have your phone there.
What a lovely trip to Norwich you had. That was lovely. How did we get there? For Stevie, Thiago's ability to tackle and recover the ball in midfield was questioned by many, including you. So has your perspective changed from what you've seen from him for the past 2 seasons?
No. He's absolutely fantastic on the ball, which we knew already.
Yep.
But when he makes challenges, on too many occasions, it's a gamble.
Right.
If he wins it, fine. If he doesn't, he's completely out the game. And he gets a lot of bookings as well, because he mistimes them.
Is that fair, Don?
Yeah, it is fair. I mean, he's unbelievable. I mean, I thought him and Fabinho were the 2 man of the matches for Liverpool. I thought they were outstanding, but tackling is not his forte. You can see when he goes in, even when he attempts to sort of goes in for a tackle, he goes in quite high. Not dangerous, just because he's not used to it, and it's not his game, but he's desperate to sort of show people that he can do that part of the game. And when you're desperate to show people that you can do that part of the game when you can't, the tackles then that we sort of know and we did, they can look a little bit like, oh, that's a yellow card. And then you're sort of thinking, one more there and he's gone. But, I mean, unbelievable player. I mean, I can't believe people questioned him at the time and said he's going to slow Liverpool down. I mean, what a player.
Does the jersey number finally bring with it a certain sense of responsibility, considering the past players who've worn the same number and amass accolades at the club? We think Liverpool number 7.
It completely depends on who's putting the jersey over their head.
Right.
You know, I think the best way to describe it came from Cooper at Nottingham Forest when they were trying to get back in the Premier League. And obviously everybody's talking about the Forest teams of Cloughy when they won two Champions Leagues, won the league, the old First Division, now the Premier League. And he said, use it as a pair of shoulders to stand on. Don't be scared.
Oh, that's nice.
I thought it was the perfect way to put it.
Did you
Too many players are scared because of the number and because of who had it before. You should take it on board and say, right, I can do this. I want to be as good, or I'm going to do as much as I can to bring pride to that number. Absolutely.
Were you always number 4?
Not until I was settled in the team.
Right.
Yeah, and that's exactly how I looked at it. I want to do as well as the guy that made that number 4. Remember?
When you went to Sheffield Wednesday, were you number 4?
I don't remember what number it was at Sheffield.
Really?
No idea.
What about you, Don? You've been everywhere. Did you have a number that you preferred?
Which number I preferred? I was always a 4 or a 10 man. I was lucky enough when I signed for Liverpool, like Graham Souness gave me the 6, so obviously I would take that without a shadow of a doubt. But I remember signing for Everton, and Howard Kendall was the manager, and Gary Speed had left to go to Newcastle, and they were an amazing pair. But I think the way Speedo sort of left Everton, I think riled Howard a little bit, because he's a massive Evertonian and he thought everyone wanted to sign for or play for Everton, and they left on sort of bad terms. And when I signed for Everton, Howard said to me, "What number do you want?" And I went, "I'm not bothered." I said, "Numbers don't really bother me. Like, I'm not bothered." And he went, "Do you want the number 10 jersey, what Speedo had?" And I went, "Yeah," because I saw that, as Stevie said, as an honour. One, It was Gary Speed shirt, who's a legendary player, legendary guy, and obviously number 10 is number 10. Like, in European terms, not so much in England, but the best number you can have. So I was like, yeah, I'll take a number 10. Like, I relished it.
What about you, Robbo?
I played in an era when you didn't have a regular number. You just played, you had the number in what position you played. And I played in nearly every position in the team. So I started off as a number 2. Mainly, I would say, over a period of time, I don't quite know how it worked, but I was number 7, mainly for Arsenal in central midfield. I even wore the number 1 on 2 occasions when I went in goal for Pat Jennings and George Wood when they got injured or sent off. So I think I played nearly every number.
George.
All 3 of you have been played as goalkeepers.
Yeah.
But
by the way, George Wood.
Don definitely the worst.
George Wood.
Whoa.
George Wood
Back myself
definitely
to be
one
better than
thing over
Stevie.
all of us.
No, Don, we saw you concede that goal.
I know, but I can't imagine Stevie being in the nets.
Who's better goalkeeper, you or him?
Oh, me, definitely.
Yeah. I mean, look at the size of
How
your
does that
hands.
work? How does that work? I'm 6'1" and he's about 5'6".
5'6", Stevie, you saying?
Aye, right. Good eyesight for a goalkeeper.
That is it. We are done. Thank you very much. Well, thank you very much for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming, premium content, and let's not forget as well, ESPN FC 7 days a week. Subscribe to ESPN Plus.